beautiful soul. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. As always, I am so grateful that you are here. My name is Emily, also known as Emily the Mystic. I am an Akashic Records reader, a channeler, an intuitive mentor, a healer, a spiritual coach. And today's topic is one that I focus a lot of my work around as a healer, as an intuitive mentor to help my clients with. And so I felt like it was really important for me to make a video all about this topic because it is really the root of the work that I do to help my clients to heal. And that is the witch wound. So the witch wound is a massively pervasive shadow within our society, within our culture. In the spiritual community, we can think of the witch wound as being mostly a personal trauma that our soul has been through in many lifetimes. However, the witch wound is so much more than that. It is truly a collective, a transgenerational and ancestral trauma that we have all experienced, even in this lifetime right now. Of course, throughout history, there have been many, many examples that I'll be getting into in a little bit. I'll be giving you a history lesson of the ways in which witches, women of all kinds, were persecuted throughout history in different ways. But we're still seeing within our patriarchal society how women are continually being affected in different ways by the witch wound, and how that is bringing up so many things within our society that need healing. So in today's video, I'm going to be diving into what the witch wound is, so you can really get a high-level perspective and overview of the witch wound, so you can begin to see how the witch wound may be affecting you in your own life. And then in next week's video, you're going to learn all about the ways in which the witch wound is impacting and affecting you, and how you can begin to heal from it. So without further ado, let's get into it. So let's start by talking about what the witch wound is, so you can get a better idea of how the witch wound may be impacting you. So the witch wound is both a personal, a soul level, and archetypal trauma, so affecting you at the soul level, as well as a collective, ancestral, and transgenerational trauma. So it's affecting both us personally as a soul, and also our collective, our society as well. And the witch wound itself, if you really distill it down energetically to its core, it is a persecution of the divine feminine. And we have seen the witch wound being perpetuated throughout time as a persecution of judgment towards abuse of and physical killing and literal death of women throughout time. However, it's important to note that regardless of your gender in this lifetime, because the witch wound is a collective wound, it is affecting all of us. And I'm going to be getting into why momentarily. So the witch wound, we commonly think of it, because it is called the witch wound, we think of it as being this wound that has been born out of the witch trials that have happened throughout time, all over the world, all across the globe. However, for me and my work, I see the witch wound as something that has perpetuated for so much longer than that, above and beyond the witch trials. We're going to get to the witch trials in a moment, but the witch wound itself, so I spend a lot of my time, my spiritual time, and my work working specifically with Goddess Lilith. Now, if you're not familiar with who Goddess Lilith is, she was the first, according to storytelling and so forth, she was the first woman who was created by God to be a partner to Adam. And within the Garden of Eden, Adam did not see Lilith as being an equal, and Lilith literally refused to have sexual relations with Adam because she did not want to see herself as being less than or unequal to Adam. And so she chose to leave the garden, and she chose to go off on her own and do her own thing. So to me, The witch wound begins literally with the story of Lilith. It goes it goes that far back. Again, this is an archetypal shadow that exists within time, within our world, within our universe. And the witch wound literally began when women were looked upon as being subservient or unequal to men. And when divine feminine energy and the feminine was considered to be unequal or subservient or not as good as divine masculine energy. And I also, by the way, this video was not created to scorn or vilify men or masculine energy by any means. However, I did create it to help you understand what is within both the collective shadow and what may be in your own shadow as well, regardless of your gender and regardless of the genders you've taken on throughout your soul's history, because we've all had lifetimes you may not even know this, but you have had lifetimes as other genders. You may have been a woman who was affected by the witch trials. You may have been a man who was on the other side persecuting during the witch trials. So there are so many ways in which the witch wound can be impacting you. And again, we're going to get to that in a moment. So let's also break down the witch wound as an archetypal energy. So Carl Jung, this very famous psychologist, created his list of archetypes. And the witch archetype is not specifically listed within Carl Jung's list of archetypes. However, it is a combination of the magician archetype, representing the master manifestor, the creator energy, the builder energy, and the sage energy and the sage archetype. So the sage energy represents the wise person, the, all-knowing, educated sort of energy. So the witch is literally a combination of both of those archetypes. And as we know from looking at Carl Jung's archetypes, there are both high vibrations and low vibrations to them. There is both light and there is dark, there is light and there is shadow. So all of these archetypes have a shadow side to them, and we all have these archetypes within us. We carry all versions of the archetype. So part of this human journey and our ascension journey is learning how to love all parts of ourselves, all aspects of ourselves, to bring the unconscious shadow to light, to understand the unconscious, to understand the darker parts of ourselves. That's part of this whole human process. And so we have to understand the darker side of our witch archetype. We have to understand the shadow side of the witch wound itself, and really to get to know what that could mean for us individually as souls along our soul's path and our soul's journey. So the witch archetype itself has been known within our society to be seen as this crazy, evil, demonic woman. This woman who lived at the outside of society, who did not want to contribute to the rest of the community, who was doing crazy things, practicing magic at all hours of the day, and who was generally this very evil, very anti-God person, who would, the traditional story about the witch is that she is this living in this dark hut at the outside of town, on the outskirts of town, and she's to be feared, and we're to fear her because she is this crazy person who could harm us and who could hurt us. However, that witch archetype is a way of completely stripping away our power and our connection to our power. So on the other side of that shadow side of the witch, we also have the empowered woman, the woman who knows who she is, who is unapologetic, who is unafraid of being her true self, who is using her work, her powers to help other people. She stands in her truth, she speaks her mind, she sets boundaries, etc., etc. And that archetype is the one in which the witch wound is trying to pull us away from. Because when a woman is fully in her power and fully connected to her divine energy, she is unstoppable. She's this intuitive, empowered force. And so the witch wound has been an attempt to strip us away from our power so that we can be subservient to our patriarchal society and to the powers that be, the people that control our governments, the people that control our world even. So that's why this is so, so, so important, is because the witch wound keeps us separate from our power. It keeps us separate from being connected to our true selves and from knowing who we really are. So we can see so many examples throughout history of violence and even the death and killing of women throughout time. There are literally examples of violence against women within the Bible, specifically in the New Testament. We have Mary Magdalene, a very prominent woman featured in the New Testament in the Bible, who is seen as a prostitute, a whore, somebody who is crazy and who is seen as less than Jesus, who is considered a sinner, somebody that Jesus was trying to help. However, those of us in the spiritual community know that Mary Magdalene is this incredibly powerful, enlightened goddess who has so much wisdom, who is just full of her divine feminine energy and her knowingness for being her true self. And she can help us and work with us in many different ways. But in order to paint this picture of women being seen as less than Jesus and less than, Mary Magdalene was portrayed as being this low class, low level person, low level woman within the Bible. That is literally right there an example of the witch wound. The witch wound is literally the shadow beneath our patriarchal society and is a very real transgenerational trauma that us as women and the divine feminine are up against every single day. And of course, now we have to talk about the witch trials themselves. The witch trials occurred, we most commonly think of them happening in Salem, Massachusetts, here in the United States. However, the witch trials occurred all over the world, most concentrated in North America and in Europe. However, the witch trials are still happening in many places in third world countries all over the globe, even now. So thankfully, women are not being burned at the stake here in the United States or in Europe anymore, but people are still accused of witchcraft, are still accused of magic in more tribal communities, and are still harmed, hurt, or even killed in many different ways. Again, all over the globe. I was reading specifically a National Geographic article about how this is still happening in Africa, in India, in more of the Pacific Islander nations and so forth. There are still women and people who are accused of magic and who are stripped of their power and who are thrown in jail or killed or other terrible, terrible things that have happened to them. So some historical sources will say that there were hundreds of thousands of people affected by the witch trials, specifically women affected by the witch trials. However, there are other sources that say that there are millions of women who are affected, and I am sure that many, 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 many women were undocumented who were harmed, hurt, or killed during the witch trials. Specifically killed, I should say. And the other thing about the witch trials is that women were killed not just for being witches. And by the way, what's so bad about being a witch, right? Why is that a bad thing? Why is that an evil thing? Of course, when we look at the religions within our culture and our society that paint witches as being sinners and evil and demonic beings who must be killed, that is where the shadow of the witch really comes from, is from religious trauma as well. But no women were safe during the witch trials. Women were killed for being business owners. They were killed for having the wrong hair color or for wearing weird clothes or literally for being more of a lone wolf within their community. If you didn't abide by the local religion, forget it. You were accused of being a witch. If you helped people by giving them medicinal remedies and you were not the local doctor, forget it. You were persecuted for being a witch, and so many other things that have happened to women during the witch trials specifically. So, all of this goes to say that all over the world, all across time, women who were unapologetic in their power, who were simply being themselves, who were simply living and existing in society, were treated in terrible ways because of this fear of women and their power. And the more that women continue to stand up, be in their power, be their true selves, the more that all of us become who we really are and assert our freedom within our society, the more we're outcast, the more we're pushed or cast aside, the more we're vilified, and the more that the witch wound continues to perpetuate. So it's up to us as a collective to heal the witch wound. And that starts at the individual level, which is why I help my clients with this, which is why I really specialize in doing this work to help my community, help my audience, help my clients, because it starts with every single one of us. The other aspect of the witch wound is that it pits women against each other, and it pits all of us against each other. It encourages jealousy, it encourages spitefulness and competition. Our patriarchal societies literally run on competition, and the witch wound is absolutely a part of that. So it creates a general distrust of our neighbor, of the person living next door, of our community at large, and it creates a lot of fear. The witch wound overall perpetuates a pervasive fear of women and people who are different. So another reason why it's really important that we talk about the witch wound is because there's actually a lot of research being done on epigenetics, which is the study of how our environment, how nature can literally affect our DNA, our physical body, our behaviors, and even our belief systems. So the trauma that we've experienced across time with women being harmed, hurt, killed, or persecuted for being their true selves literally lives within our DNA, literally lives within our belief systems, our self-worth, the way that we view ourselves, and the way that we view other women, and the way that we view other people within our collective as well. And again, it makes us live in a constant state of fear, a constant state of fear. The witch wound literally perpetuates that fear within our physical body. An example for you from my own life, this went away once I started healing my witch wound. By the way, I feel like healing the witch wound is a constant lifelong journey. It's not just something you can do in a matter of weeks. It's something, because it's so pervasive at the collective level, we're going to constantly be bumping up against new ways in which the witch wound can show itself, new layers of it. We have seen literally within the last year here in the United States with the Roe versus Wade abortion legislation being overturned, how the witch wound continues to show up and how it continues to vilify women, their bodies, and our needs, and the ability for us to literally be an equal part of our society, and not just the gender of women, but also divine feminine energy in general, and the ability for the divine feminine energy to be free and to be empowered and to be liberated and have agency and sovereignty for being our true selves. So I speak a lot on this topic on social media. Most specifically, I do a lot of past life work with my clients. And for me personally, one way that the witch wound really affected me was when I was working in the corporate world, really getting my feet wet as this like strong, independent, corporate woman, I really struggled to speak my truth in the corporate setting. I literally had such a major throat chakra block that when I would go to give a presentation or even introduce myself, I couldn't speak. I would get such a blockage in my throat and in my voice that I couldn't say a word. I would literally try to introduce myself during a group setting and nothing would come out. I would get so nervous. And that was a physical body reaction to being in the spotlight, to being seen, and to having to speak my truth by introducing myself in front of other people. And once I started healing my witch wound and healing my shadow and healing my throat chakra blockages, that went away. And now I can film videos like this. I can do group healings. I can do group work, public speaking, and I have no issue with it. I might get a little nervous, but I'm not blocked from being able to speak like I was before. And again, in next week's video, we're going to dive more deeply into how the witch wound is impacting you in your own life so that you can get some idea of what may be going on for you under the covers and what needs to be healed in your own life. But the other point that I wanted to make is that as a spiritual practitioner, I really approach healing the witch wound from a spiritual level. And I really address this work at the soul level by helping my clients identify, come to know, and understand their past life experiences and how those past life experiences have shaped the person that they are today. So here's some examples of how the witch wound is impacting all of us. Let's take the Salem Witch Trials, for example. We have thousands of women who were impacted by the Salem Witch Trials. We have women who were harmed, hurt, killed, or persecuted during the witch trials. We've got people who are on the other side of the witch trials who were accusing women. We have women within groups within Salem who are accusing other women of being witches. Imagine all of that now being magnified and spread out across North America, across Europe, and across the globe. We've got people who were accused of being witches. We've got people on the other side of the aisle who are accusing others of being witches. We've got people who were pitting women against each other and accusing their neighbors of being witches. And that has been magnified to such an extreme that all of us have been impacted by that energetically and throughout time in our own lives. So your soul, especially if you are a highly evolved old soul, you've likely had a past life within the witch trials, or were accused of being evil or bad or demonic for being your true self, or were again harmed, hurt, killed, or persecuted in some way. So again, I can't stress this enough that the witch wounding is impacting all of us and that this trauma still lives within our collective and within our own individual shadows as well. So I hope this video gave you some overall information about the witch trials. I decided to split this up into a couple of different videos because otherwise these videos would be so long. So that is an overview about the witch wound itself. So you can kind of get to know the historical perspective, the physical body perspective, the spiritual perspective of it and how it's impacting us. And then in next week's video, we're going to talk about how to identify how the witch wound is impacting you in your own life so that you can begin to heal from it. Because we all have to do our own individual part. And the more that we are focusing on our own healing, the more that we help the collective to heal. And therefore, the more we change the vibration and the frequency of the collective in our society. And that, my friends, is what we are here to do. So with that, I send you so much love. If you are new to this channel, make sure you subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. And also comment below what resonated with you from this video. Perhaps you really felt the energy of the witch wound in your body as you were listening to this video and you were like, oh my gosh, Like this happened to me. My soul deeply knows this so well. I know that I need to do some healing around this in my own life. Therefore, I really want you to pay attention to the next video because it's going to give you so much information that you will need for your journey. All right, I'm sending you love and I will see you soon. Bye.